This is Community Radio Networks. It is the day after Independence Day. Welcome to Friday, the 5th of July. We have all the information right now, right here on Community Radio Networks, getting you ready to take on the day. We'll start with the world news. This is Community Radio Networks, the world news, read by Shabnam Madgil. Labour leader Keir Starmer has officially become Prime Minister of the United Kingdom. He received the blessings of King Charles III to form a government in a ceremony known as the Kissing of Hands. A photo of the occasion served as the official announcement of his new title. He's now headed from Buckingham Palace to take up residence in number 10 Downing Street, where he is expected to speak in just a few minutes. He replaces Conservative Prime Minister Rishi Sunak, who offered his resignation to Charles after his party that ruled for 14 years was swept from power in a Labour landslide. Sunak, in his farewell remarks, said he had heard the anger and disappointment of voters and took responsibility for his party's loss. Britain's Labour Party swept to power this morning after more than a decade in opposition as a jaded electorate handed the party a landslide victory, but also a mammoth task of reinvigorating a stagnant economy and dispirited nation. Labour leader Keir Starmer officially Prime Minister today, leading his party back to government less than 5 years after it suffered its worst defeat in almost a century. British Prime Minister Rishi Sunak ousted from office today after the centre-left Labour Party won the parliamentary majority in the UK's first national elections in nearly 5 years. Sir Keir Starmer, Labour's leader, expected right now to speak in his first address as Prime Minister of the United Kingdom. As the dust settles from the UK's general elections, it's clear the Tories have lost big. The results from yesterday were a dramatic rebuke as an incumbent Conservative Party leadership that has governed for 14 years with Prime Minister Rishi Sunak's faction losing more than 240 seats as the count wrapped up. And he conceded defeat this morning and replaced by the Labour Party leader Keir Starmer. The opposition Labour Party won the UK general election by a landslide, securing 412 of the 650 seats. And Labour leader Keir Starmer declared that begins now. As the next British Prime Minister, after his Labour Party secured this landslide victory, he ended the 14-year reign of the Conservative Party, which was now led by Rishi Sunak, who said, "I have heard your anger, your disappointment, and I take responsibility for this loss to all the Conservative candidates and campaigners who worked tirelessly but without success. I'm sorry that we could not deliver what your efforts deserved," he added. In some good news for him, he retains his Richmond North Allerton seat. However, the Tories' disastrous performance in the election is likely to be replaced as the Conservative Party leader. Keir Starmer vowed to bring change to Britain as its next Prime Minister after his Labour Party surged to this comprehensive win in a parliamentary election today, ending 14 years of often tumultuous Conservative government. We do have a Hurricane Beryl churning towards the Cayman Islands and has made landfall in Mexico near Tulum after leaving a trail of destruction in southern Jamaica, killing at least 2 people on the island nation, bringing down power lines and leaving hundreds homeless and in shelters. We do have Hurricane Beryl strengthening this morning to a Category 3 storm as it approached Mexico's Yucatan Peninsula, bringing damaging winds and the storm surge of up to 6 feet. The hurricane has already been blamed in 9 deaths in Venezuela, Jamaica, and the Windward Island nations of Grenada and St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and caused severe damage to many homes in Grenada and St. Vincent, as well as the Grenadine. The Yucatan Peninsula under a hurricane warning, expected to start getting hurricane force winds today. Up to 10 inches of rain is expected, with some flash flooding possible on the peninsula. Almost 30,000 people, meanwhile, ordered to evacuate their North California homes in recent days as wildfires continue to spread near the city of Oroville, as the Thompson fire has consumed around 3,500 acres, having tripled in size. Officials say the blaze's 7% contained. No deaths have been reported, though at least 7 firefighters were treated for injuries. Millions of Americans took a welcome 4th of July break yesterday, flocking to parades, fireworks shows, and barbecues for a brief respite from the daily drumbeat of unsettling news at home and abroad. The holiday, which marks the July 5th signing of the Declaration of Independence from Britain in 1776, is a day when Americans traditionally celebrate with proud displays of old-fashioned patriotism. And this year, with the country's drift towards hyper-partisanship and an election battle underway between President Biden and challenger Donald Trump, it was a chance for Americans to come together for a day and forget about their differences. 3 people, though, were killed when a driver suspected of being under the influence crashed into a crowd celebrating the holiday at a New York City park yesterday. The pickup truck, driving at a high rate of speed, ran through an intersection, went up on the sidewalk, and struck the crowd at Corlear's Hook Park in Manhattan last night. In addition to the 3 people who were killed, 7 others were injured. A new face hoisted the mustard belt at Nathan's famous 4th of July hot dog eating contest yesterday after 39-year-old Patrick Bertoletti downed 58 hot dogs in 10 minutes. Florida's Mickey Sudo chomped through 51 francs, setting a women's world record en route to her 10th title. There might have been a ghost at the feast, but that didn't stop the winner of Nathan's famous international hot dog eating contest, Patrick Bertoletti, from celebrating yesterday. President Biden will sit today for his first televised interview since his disastrous debate performance last week, one that could be crucial in determining whether he can salvage his embattled candidacy. The interview with anchor George Stephanopoulos of ABC News is shaping up to be one of the most high-stake moments for a president or candidate in many years. President Biden crashed a Zoom call with staffers also to shore up morale and convince them that he's not dropping out. The president hopped on this call with his campaign and Democratic National Convention staff, citing anonymous staffers in the call. Seated beside Vice President Kamala Harris, he told staffers that no one is pushing him out of the re-election bid. He scrambled to defuse a political crisis over his shaky debate performance and is participating in this television interview today that will be closely watched for signs of whether his mental acuity is failing. He's traveling to Madison, Wisconsin to rally Democratic voters. During the trip, he will be interviewed, part of a flurry of events over the next week aimed at showing Americans he still has the stamina to run against Donald Trump in the November 5th election. In recent conversations with aides, family members, and allies outside the White House, he has vacillated between acceptance and defiance in the face of the seismic shift in his political standing within his own party. He has privately acknowledged that the next stretch of days are critical to whether he can save his re-election bid for president, making clear to an ally that he understands what would prompt him to accept. President Biden facing an uprising from some of his own party's wealthy donors, including an heiress to the Disney family fortune, who say they will no longer fund the Democratic Party until he drops out of the presidential race following his disastrous debate performance. His poor showing in the debate with Donald Trump last week threatens to end his campaign just 4 months before the election. Hoping to salvage his bid for another term, he's asking voters to weigh the 90-minute debacle against what he says is a 3.5-year record of achievement in office. A breakthrough has been made in efforts to negotiate a framework agreement for a ceasefire deal between Israel and Hamas that might end months of fighting in Gaza and lead to the release of hostages. And this was reported by a Biden administration official. And if this deal is reached, it would bring an end to nearly 9 months of fighting in Gaza, where local health officials say more than 38,000 people have been killed. And it would also mean hostages taken captive during Hamas's October 7th terrorist attacks, in which 1,200 people were killed and 250 kidnapped, would be released. Fear of a possible full-scale war between Israel and the Hamas-allied militant group Hezbollah in Lebanon was stoked yesterday after an Israeli airstrike killed a senior Hezbollah commander. Israel has said the commander it killed, Mohammed Naameh Nasser, was responsible for firing rockets into Israel. Hezbollah, a group which, like Hamas, is backed by Iran but believed to be larger and much better armed, responded with another barrage of rocket fire. This Israeli strike in southern Lebanon has has killed the senior Hezbollah commander as tensions between the two sides continue to boil. And Israeli airstrikes and artillery barrages continue to pound the Gaza Strip overnight, killing and wounding civilians amid reports that ceasefire talks were set to be revived on ending Israel's war on the Palestinian territory. Israel's Air Force attacked Hezbollah targets in El Jabayan and Kafr Hamman areas of southern Lebanon. And Israeli President Isaac Herzog, meanwhile, has congratulated incoming UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer on what is set to be a landslide election victory for the Labour Party. Yemen's Houthi group has reported 3 fresh US-British airstrikes against its sites in western Al-Hudaydah province. In Italy's lower house of parliament, the Chamber of Deputies, has voted against a proposal put forward by the left-wing opposition parties to recognize Palestine as a state. And it is protests in Dublin that have condemned U.S. support for Israel's actions in Gaza. And Spain's foreign minister urged the European Union to do more about the attacks on Gaza and warned that the bloc's double standards on Palestinians and Ukraine are growing more and more obvious. Indonesia hosted a meeting of the UN Committee on the exercise of the inalienable rights of the Palestinian people to bolster support for Palestine. Polls opened in Iran today for a runoff presidential election that will test the clerical ruler's popularity amid voter apathy at a time of regional tensions and a standoff with the West over Tehran's nuclear program. Polling stations opened their doors to voters early this morning, and polling will end at 6 p.m., but are usually extended until as late as midnight, and the final result will be announced tomorrow. The runoff follows a June 20th ballot with historic low turnout when over 60% of Iranian voters abstained from the snap election for a successor to Ibrahim Raisi following his death in a helicopter crash, and the low participation is seen by critics as a vote of no confidence in the Islamic Republic. Over the weekend, Iranians voting to elect this new president to replace Ibrahim Raisi. Israel, meanwhile, has approved the largest seizure of land in the occupied West Bank in over 3 decades, a settlement tracking group, a move that is likely to worsen already soaring tensions linked to the war in Gaza. Kenya's government has raised concerns about risks associated with the use of artificial intelligence as youth-led anti-government protests continue across the nation. Protesters have deployed creative uses of AI and digital tools to take on the political establishment over the past few weeks as part of the nationwide demonstrations, which were triggered by the now scrapped Finance Bill 2024 containing a raft of unpopular tax hikes. And 25 soldiers with the Democratic Republic of Congo's army have been sentenced to death for fleeing battles against the notorious M23 rebels in the conflict-hit east of the country. The UN and partners say more migrants and refugees in Africa are heading northward towards the Mediterranean and Europe, crossing perilous routes in the Sahara, where criminal gangs subject them to enslavement, organ removal, rape, kidnapping for ransom, and other abuses. A report released this morning by the UN Refugee and Migration Agencies and the Mixed Migration Center Research Group estimated that land routes in Africa are twice as deadly as the sea lanes across the Mediterranean, which is the deadliest maritime route for migrants in the world. And Coast Guards in Mauritania have recovered 89 bodies of migrants from a boat that capsized in the Atlantic Ocean. 9 people, including a 5-year-old girl, were rescued, but dozens more are missing. Candidates in France's pivotal and polarizing legislative elections making their last pushes today for the second and decisive round of voting after a 3-week campaign marked by hate speech, verbal abuse, and physical attacks. French Interior Minister said his ministry has registered 51 verbal and physical attacks against candidates, their deputies, or their supporters during this campaigning for the high-stakes parliamentary elections that end with the second round of voting on this Sunday. Several attacks were extremely serious. At least 30 suspects with extremely varied backgrounds have been arrested. Meanwhile, Hungary's Prime Minister Viktor Orbán has arrived in Moscow to meet Russian President Putin. The visit has been criticized by European Union leaders who have emphasized that Mr. Orbán is not acting on behalf of the bloc. He is the European Union's only head of national government to have kept close ties to the Kremlin following its full-scale invasion of Ukraine in 2022. He described his trip as a peace mission and comes days after he visited Kyiv. Viktor Orban's trip to Moscow to meet Vladimir Putin, sparking anger in the European Union to concerns about negotiating on behalf of the European Union without a mandate. He said he is on this fact-finding mission and not negotiating on behalf of the Union about the war in Ukraine, even as the bloc warned him not to visit Moscow. Russian President Putin said he would never declare a ceasefire in Ukraine without Kyiv meeting certain preconditions. Ukraine could use a ceasefire to arm itself for new attacks, which is why a sustainable solution to the conflict must be negotiated first, he said. British sprinter Mark Cavendish broke the record for the most Tour de France stage wins in history with his sprint finish victory during stage 5 of what is said to be his last ride in the prestigious race. The 39-year-old has now won a record-setting 35 Tour de France stages, cementing his status as the best sprinter in the history of the competition's 111 editions. Previously jointly held the record of 34 stage victories with Belgian cycling legend Eddy Merckx. And Andy Murray, a two-time Wimbledon champion, received an emotional tribute on centre court after a doubles defeat. Surrounded by family and former rivals, the former tennis champion, like Novak Djokovic, Roger Federer and Rafael Nadal, were present to pay tribute to Andy Murray's career and competitive spirit. Pope Francis will preside over an interfaith meeting in a mosque in the world's largest predominantly Muslim country during a four-nation Asian visit in September that will be the longest and most complicated foreign trip of his pontificate. The Vatican today has released the itinerary for his September 2nd to the 13th trip to Indonesia, East Timor, Papua New Guinea, and Singapore. The packed schedule makes clear that the 87-year-old pontiff, who has battled health problems and is increasingly reliant on a wheelchair, has no plans to slow down. New fighting has broken out in northeastern Myanmar, bringing an end to a Chinese-brokered ceasefire and putting pressure on the military regime as it faces attacks from resistance forces on multiple fronts in the country's civil war. The Taang National Liberation Party Army, one of three powerful militia that launched a surprise joint offensive last October, renewed its attacks on regime positions last week in northeastern Shan State, which borders China, Laos, and Thailand, and the neighboring Mandalay region, with the support of local forces there. Ladies and gentlemen, you're listening to the World News on Community Radio Networks, and a man who stabbed South Korea's opposition leader in the neck earlier this year was sentenced to 15 years in prison today. The knife-wielding man attacked Lee Jae-myung, head of the Liberal Democratic Party, South Korea's biggest political party, in January after approaching him asking for his autograph at an event in the southeastern city of Busan. After being detained by police, he told investigators that he wanted to kill him to prevent him from becoming South Korea's president. Nepal's second-largest party withdrew from the government to join its longtime rival in a new coalition as pressure builds on the prime minister to resign. The Communist Party of Nepal, which is the second-largest party, announced it was withdrawing support for Prime Minister Pushpa Kamal Dahal. All their ministers resigned earlier, and leaders of the party and Nepali Congress, the country's largest party, had signed an agreement to form a new partnership to govern for the remaining 3 years before general elections. And the Philippine forces will defend themselves with the same level of force if they come under assault again from China's Coast Guard in the disputed South China Sea, where Chinese personnel armed with machetes and spears injured Filipino Navy personnel and damaged 2 of their boats in a chaotic face-off last month. Armed Forces of the Philippines chief is asking China to pay 60 million pesos, that's $1 million, in damages for the 2 Navy boats and return 7 rifles, which he said was seized by Chinese Coast Guard personnel during that confrontation at the 2nd Thomas Shoal. Taiwan is calling for the release of one of its fishing boats and its crew after Chinese authorities boarded and seized it. Taiwan's Coast Guard said it rushed 2 patrol boats to the scene of the seizure of the Dagenham 88, but China's ships blocked them and broadcast a message saying not to interfere. At the annual summit of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, convening this week in Kazakhstan's capital of Astana, Chinese President Xi Jinping is expected to use the forum to renew calls for a multipolar global order amid heightened tensions with Western nations. The Central Asian Economic and Security Alliance, established by China and Russia in 2001, accounts for more than 40% of the world's population and is on track to expand to 10 members this year with the addition of Belarus. But while it is President Xi and Russian President Putin meeting in another sign of deepening cooperation, Prime Minister Modi has decided to skip the meeting, sending his foreign minister in its place. Modi's absence is being seen in some corners as a bid to play down the significance of the summit amid New Delhi's efforts to strike a delicate balance in its foreign policy. India's Foreign Minister Subramaniam Jaishankar met his Chinese counterpart Wang Yi in Kazakhstan, where the two agreed to step up talks to resolve issues along their border. They met on the sidelines of this Shanghai Cooperation Organization summit in Astana, where they agreed that prolongation of the current situation in the border areas is not in the interest of either side. More than 7% of all deaths in 10 of India's biggest cities are linked to air pollution. This according to a large study this morning, leading researchers to call for action to save tens of thousands of lives a year. Smog-filled Indian cities, including the capital of Delhi, suffer from some of the world's worst air pollution, choking the lungs of residents and posing a rising threat to health, still being revealed by researchers. For the new study, an Indian-led team looked at the levels of cancer-causing microparticles in the cities of Ahmedabad, Bengaluru, Chennai, Delhi, Hyderabad, Kolkata, Mumbai, Pune, Simla, and Varanasi. And Prime Minister Modi extended congratulations to Keir Starmer on his historic victory in the UK general election, and also thanked the outgoing Prime Minister Rishi Sunak for his leadership and efforts to deepen India-UK ties. He congratulated the new Prime Minister on his Labour Party's historic victory in the general elections. We also do have the UK election results that saw the Labour Party win a landslide victory, with Starmer becoming the Prime Minister of UK today. And Sojourn Joseph, who migrated to the UK in 2001, is being celebrated in his hometown in Kerala's Kottayam, and that because of these celebrations after he clinched a historic victory in the Ashford constituency. The Labour Party candidate becoming the first Keralite to be elected to the British Parliament. His win is seen as a significant milestone for the Indian community in the UK. Meanwhile, though Rishi Sunak, the British Indian politician, lost the UK general elections today, as predicted, the Indians do have a reason to smile. 26 Indian origin candidates from both Labour and Conservative parties have won the election. There were 15 Indian origin MPs in the current House of Commons. A record number of 107 British Indian candidates contested these polls, and outgoing Prime Minister Rishi Sunak is also retaining his seat despite the Conservatives being routed. And Kanishka Narayan becomes the first MP of Wales from minority ethnic background. There are 1 million people who identify themselves as Hindus in the UK and are the third largest religious group. And the election in the UK saw a record number of 107 Indian origin candidates contesting the polls. Prime Minister Modi today met and interacted with the Indian athletes who will be heading to Paris for the 2024 Olympic Games. He held a pep talk with the Indian medal hopefuls and motivated them to give their best. The Paris Olympics will be held in the French capital from the 26th of this month to the 11th of August. And the National Eligibility cum Entrance Test for Postgraduate NEET PG 2024 new exam date has been announced. It was initially scheduled for the 23rd of June, but was postponed by the Health Ministry as a precautionary matter. And now it is going to be scheduled to be held on the 11th of August. There is a blow to K. Chandrasekhar Rao as 6 of his party MLCs have joined Congress in Telangana. Telangana BRS MLCs that have now joint Congress there in Telangana. A major blow to the former Telangana Chief Minister Chandrasekhar Rao, as 6 members of the Legislative Council from his party, the Bharat Rashtriya Samiti, have joined Congress in Hyderabad this morning. And Sikh separatist Amritpal Singh and terror funding accused Kashmiri leader Sheikh Abdul Rashid, also known as Engineer Rashid, took oath as members of parliament today, weeks after they won the 2024 Lok Sabha elections. Both of them were granted parole to take oath as members of the Lok Sabha, brought to parliament by the Delhi police and taken to the speaker's chambers, where they took the oath and completed other formalities, following which they were taken back to jail. Several parts of India, including Delhi, experiencing extreme and heavy rain as the southwest monsoon covered the entire country 6 days ahead of schedule. And this marked a 32% increase in weekly rainfall compared to the average. Indian police said they had arrested 6 people over a stampede at a Hindu religious event in the northern state of Uttar Pradesh this week, in which 121 people were killed. And the incident occurred in the village of Phulrai Mughalgadi in Hathras district, where 250,000 people had gathered to listen to preacher Suraj Pal Singh, also known as Bhole Baba. They arrested these people, and Uttar Pradesh police have lodged an FIR against the organizers of the religious congregation where these people died. A top focus of this episode has these 121 lives lost due to negligence during a satsang in Uttar Pradesh, and the organizers have been booked, but not the self-styled godman Bhole Baba, who is on the run. Prime Minister Modi asked Rohit Sharma about the Barbados pitch and the Ric Flair strut gesture after winning the T20 World Cup 2024. Rohit received the trophy from Jay Shah in a unique fashion as he copied the wrestling legend's iconic walk, and then he would go on to have a bite of the Kensington Oval track. These moments would end up going viral, said the Prime Minister to Rohit Sharma. India's T20 World Cup winners returned home to a hero's welcome, with skipper Rohit Sharma and his players hailed by euphoric fans jostling to glimpse their stars, frenzied crowds shouting as they landed in New Delhi from the Caribbean. Whistles and wild cheers greeted the players as they walked out from the arrivals area with gold medals around their necks, and some giving a thumbs up to their fans. It is Vice President Hardik Pandya who emerged first wearing a Caribbean hat, and the crowd erupted when Captain Rohit Sharma came out carrying the glittering trophy, which he hoisted into the air, and star batsman Virat Kohli, whose hometown is Delhi, was given some of the loudest cheers as he waved to hundreds of fans. Then the team met Prime Minister Modi before flying to Mumbai for a victory parade in the heart of India's financial capital today. The Champions Trophy headlines Pakistan's home 2024-25 season, but doubts remain whether India will make that trip across the border for the elite 50 overs tournament, which is being held for the first time since 2017. Thanks to the SAARC political relations, India have not visited Pakistan since 2008, and the cricket-mad countries play each other only at multi-team events. Pakistan hosted the Asia Cup last year, but eventual winners India were allowed to play all their matches in Sri Lanka under the organizers called a hybrid model. The refurbishment and construction of portions of 3 stadiums by the Pakistan Cricket Board in Lahore, Karachi and Rawalpindi were not requirements of the International Cricket Council to host next year's Champions Trophy. Rather, it was the Pakistan Cricket Board's own decision. Pakistan Cricket Board Chairman Mohsin Naqvi said no decision had been made on Babar Azam's future as captain yet, and the future course of action will be taken after consultation with former players and head coach Gary Kirsten. Karachi continues to experience hot and humid weather conditions as maximum temperatures reached 37.1 degrees Celsius with 65% relative humidity. Ladies and gentlemen, that's all I have in the world news for you today, but I do have your financial news coming up in just a minute. Stay with us right here on Community Radio Networks. All right, let's get you now all the financial news that you need to know today. It's the day after Independence Day, and it is Friday, the 5th of July. Global stocks traded at all-time highs before crucial U.S. jobs data that is expected to show some moderation in hiring. The pound notched its longest winning streak in 4 years as Labour swept to power in the UK's general election. Investors are bracing for the June jobs report, which is due any time now, on the alert for softening in the labour market, and the report is expected to show non-farm payrolls growth slowed to 190,000 rise in June, and that the unemployment rate held steady at 4%. U.S. equity futures nudging higher in early trading this morning, while Treasury yields in the dollar were largely unchanged as investors brace for this key labor market release that could cement market bets for an annual autumn Federal Reserve rate cut. U.S. stock futures held near all-time highs today as Wall Street returned from a holiday break ahead of the key monthly jobs report that will play into Federal Reserve rate cut calculations. Investors pouring $19 billion into bond funds in the week to Wednesday, the biggest inflow since February of 2021, as they locked in high yields, according to the Bank of America. And new data shows that a median price single-family home and condo are the most expensive they have been since 2007, as many Americans continue to struggle in the current housing market. If Tesla can be a tech company when car sales falter, surely it can be a car company when sales exceed expectations. That's how Wall Street sees it, as Tesla bulls are once again ascendant. Over the last week, Tesla shares have surged more than 25%, boosted by vehicle deliveries that beat estimates, leaving the paltry gains of the rest of the Magnificent Seven in the dust. Samsung Electronics Company posted its fastest pace of sales and profit growth in years, reflecting a recovery in memory chip demand as AI development accelerates globally. The world's largest maker of memory chips and smartphones posted a 15-fold surge in operating profit to 10.4 trillion wons, which is $7.5 billion in the June quarter, outstripping analysts' projections. Sales grew around 23%, the biggest rise since COVID-era highs clocked in 2021, and the stock rose as much as 2.3% to its highest since January 2021. The parent of Saks Fifth Avenue agreed to buy rival Neiman Marcus, and this is a move that is expected to give the struggling luxury retailers more power to negotiate with the vendors. Amazon and Salesforce will take minority stakes in this combined company to be called Saks Global and offer the technological expertise. And Wall Street reporting this, and this $2.65 billion deal was reported yesterday. The Los Angeles Lakers and star forward LeBron James have reportedly agreed to a new deal. James and the Lakers have agreed to a 2-year, $104 million deal that includes a no-trade clause. The deal, which is the maximum that he could get from the Lakers, will keep him on the Lakers until he is 41 if he plays out the full length of this contract. Irish actor Nicola Coughlan, best known for her role as Penelope Featherington in the hit Netflix series Bridgerton, has successfully raised $2 million for the Palestine Children's Relief Fund through her social media efforts. And a new study published in the Journal of Allergy and Clinical Immunology finds children who once had severe allergies to cow's milk now consume dairy without restrictions. This groundbreaking study is a game changer for children suffering from milk allergies, demonstrating that dairy allergies can achieve remission, enabling children who are anaphylactic today to eventually consume milk without a restriction. This was a study by Dr. Inderpal Randhava, lead researcher and CEO of the Food Allergy Institute. If you love the taste of hot dogs but don't want to have to deal with all that chewing, Grandpa Joe's Candy Shop, based in the Strip District, has introduced the world's first hot dog water soda, lightly carbonated sugary salute to the 150-year-old wiener in a bun. And hot dog water isn't the only unique flavor soda they offer. They also have ketchup, dill pickle, blue cheese, bacon, bananas, toothpaste, coffee, and chocolate. Some of the flavors you can get in the Strip or at Grandpa Joe's 17 other retail locations. Untreated water used by Florida cucumber grower is a likely source of salmonella food poisoning that sickened nearly 450 people across the country this spring. Salmonella found in untreated canal water used by Bedner Growers Inc. of Boynton Beach, Florida, matched a strain of the bacteria that caused some of the illnesses in many states, and in Texas included in them. Nearly 70% of 6 people interviewed reported eating those cucumbers before they fell ill. Carter Blood Care is urging North Texans to donate. The summer is already tough for keeping up with the supplies, and now they are down to critical levels. Critical status means there is less than a day's supply of blood on hand, and this has led to surgeries and medical treatments being postponed until the community supply is replenished. When Arlington hosts the Major League All-Star Game on the 16th of this month, the village outside will draw visitors coming for the game, and North Texans are looking for a way to take part. All-Star Village, covering 650,000 square feet between Choctaw Stadium and Esports Stadium. We also have a new restaurant partially owned by 2 members of the band Kiss that has opened in Grapevine. Rock and Brews has a rock and roll theme. Gene Simmons and Paul Stanley are partial owners of the restaurant chain. The Grapevine location is the 3rd in Texas. Rock and Brews already has locations in San Antonio and the Colony, plus in California, Oklahoma, and several other states. UK assets are back in favor after Keir Starmer's Labour Party swept to a landslide election win, fueling hopes for a period of political calm and a steady approach to the nation's finances. The pound was poised for its longest winning streak in 4 years, while the gilts rose across the curve, outperforming their German and US peers. The FTSE 100 stock index climbed for a 3rd day, and the more domestically exposed FTSE 250 jumped almost 2%, a reflection of improving sentiment toward the country's equity market. A World War II bunker converted into a green hotel, bar, and event space has become Hamburg's newest tourist landmark after opening to the public in July. Located in Hamburg's nightlife hub of St. Pauli, the anti-aircraft bunker is one of the large concrete fortresses that can still be seen in this port city and across Germany, and into which citizens were evacuated during the 1940s air raids. Among the most impressive new design elements is the large path, also lined with plants, shrubs, and trees, which wraps around the outside of the building, leading visitors up to the rooftop gardens. And the building now houses an event space, restaurant, bar, cafe, and a hotel with 134 rooms. The hotel Reverb, run by Hard Rock. Shares in South Korea's SK Hynix Inc., a key supplier to Nvidia Corporation, have jumped more than 90% over the past year, and Wall Street is predicting further gains. We also have China's AI sector showing confidence this week at the major fair in Shanghai that it would overcome restrictions imposed by the West, with companies rolling out cutting-edge products developed by a growing pool of young talent. The country's generative AI industry has shown explosive growth, with the UN reporting China has in recent years been the top filer of patents for AI software that creates everything from illustrations to computer codes. And at the World AI Conference in Shanghai, exhibitors were keen to show off generative AI products, with one stall displaying realistic watercolors and sci-fi themed illustrations produced by software. The Sensex and the Nifty have ended flat as financials are declining, and the HDFC Bank shares have tanked 4.5%. S&P BSE Sensex down 53.07 points at the closing bell, while the NSE Nifty 50 settled 26 points higher. The value of defense production in India has gone up to a record high figure, reflecting a growth of 16.7% over the defense production of the previous financial year. It is now at 1.27 lakh crore rupees for financial year 24. The Ministry of Defense achieved this highest ever growth in indigenous defense production in value terms during this financial year, in the back of successful implementation of the policies and initiatives of the government led by Prime Minister Modi, focusing on achieving Atmanirbharta. And the government should meanwhile consider tax relief for the salaried classes, and income tax filing has been a daunting task also. We do have a household facing curry crisis as the onions, tomatoes, and potato prices are skyrocketing in India. Zomato has suspended its hyperlocal delivery service called Extreme due to low demand. And we do have also a heat wave that is hurting the retail car sales last month despite the big discounts. And we also have Edelweiss MD and CEO Radhika Gupta sharing tips for safety investing in mutual funds, asking people to invest in the dal chawal funds, as she calls them. HDFC Bank falls 4% after a weak first quarter business update. And MCure Pharma IPO, the initial public offering of MCure Pharmaceuticals, backed by Namita Thapar, has opened for subscription, looking to raise over almost 2,000 crore rupees. Tesla, meanwhile, is unlikely to move ahead with its India investment, but we will keep you updated on that news. We have also Saudi Arabia approving granting Saudi citizenship to scientists, doctors, researchers, entrepreneurs, and other individuals with rare skills, experience, and specializations. And this move is expected to help bolster the kingdom's economic, health, cultural, sports, and innovation sectors by bringing in prominent experts and specialists. And Saudi Arabia has eased tourist visa requirements with immediate effect for Pakistani travelers, with applicants now only having to submit a bank statement showing a minimum monthly credit amount of $750 or its equivalent. The inflow of treasury bills has set a new record in Karachi as it jumped by $232 million during the first 21 days of last month. And Federal Minister for Power said that all power distribution companies, or DISCOs as they call them, would be privatized in 1.5 years. NEPRA has called a public hearing on the question of passing on more than 700 billion rupees additional burden to electricity consumers during the current fiscal year by jacking up the average national tariff. And the official machinery appeared to have formalized a split among the protesting petroleum dealers, included some of them with hints of higher commission on sales of petroleum products to pass on the impact of turnover tax to consumers. The Competition Commission of Pakistan in Islamabad has green-lighted a merger within the cross-border remittances and currency exchange business. And the Federal Board of Revenue notifying new returns forms for salaried persons, Association of Persons, Companies and Business Individuals for the tax year 2024. Milk producers in Karachi have passed on the 18% increase in general sales tax to consumers, while flour millers will raise the prices shortly. Ladies and gentlemen, that's all I have in the financial news for you. And we do have your final segment of the program coming up in just a minute. Stay with us right here on Community Radio Networks. This is the final segment of our program today, and today is Friday, the 5th of July. I hope you had a great Independence Day celebration and some time off yesterday. Well, let's get you some stories from the annals of history first, and then I'll make your social calendar. It was on the 5th of July in 1775 that the Continental Congress adopted the Olive Branch Petition, written by John Dickinson, which appeals directly to King George III and expresses hope for reconciliation between the colonies and Great Britain. Dickinson, who hoped desperately to avoid a final break with Britain, phrased colonial opposition to British policy as follows: Your Majesty's ministers, persevering in their measures and proceeding to open hostilities for enforcing them, have compelled us to arm in our own defense and have engaged us in a controversy so peculiarly abhorrent to the affections of your still faithful colonists that when we consider whom we must oppose in this context, and if it continues, what may be the consequences, our own particular misfortunes are accounted by us only as parts of our distress. And by phrasing their discontent this way, Congress attempted to notify the king that American colonists were unhappy with ministerial policy, not his own. They concluded their plea with a final statement of fidelity to the crown, that your majesty may enjoy long and prosperous reign, and that your descendants may govern your dominions with honor to themselves and happiness to their subjects, is our sincere prayer. This happened on the 5th of July in 1775. And by July 1776, the Declaration of Independence proclaims something very different. The history of the present King of Great Britain is a history of repeated injuries and usurpations, all having in direct object the establishment of an absolute tyranny over these states. It was on the 5th of July in 1775 that the Continental Congress adopted this Olive Branch Petition. And during an Independence Day celebration in Rochester, New York, on the 5th of July in 1852, Frederick Douglass delivers what would become his most celebrated speech. What to the slave is the 4th of July? Tensions over slavery in the early 1850s are high, and the famed abolitionist's oration serves as a searing reminder that at the time, only a fraction of the U.S. population enjoyed the freedom celebrated by the nation. Delivering his address to an audience of about 600 at the Rochester Ladies Anti-Slavery Society at the newly built Corinthian Hall, Douglass, who escaped slavery at the age of 20, acknowledged the signers of the Declaration of Independence as truly great men, but he scathingly pointed out the hypocrisy of the nation, where the rich inheritance of justice, liberty, prosperity, and independence bequeathed by your fathers is shared by you, not by me. His powerful speech came more than a decade before the 13th Amendment to the Constitution, which would abolish slavery in the United States. Frederick Douglass delivers his What to the Slave is the 4th of July speech on today's date in 1852. And on today's date in 1865, President Andrew Johnson signs an executive order that confirms the military conviction of a group of people who had conspired to kill the late President Abraham Lincoln, then Commander-in-Chief of the U.S. Army. With his signature, he ordered 4 of the guilty to be executed. And that sign-off on this execution of the Lincoln assassination conspirators happened on today's date in 1865. It was on the 5th of July in 1911 that the mercury in Nashua, New Hampshire peaks at 106 degrees Fahrenheit, one of the many record temperatures that are set in the northeastern United States as a deadly 11-day heat wave hits the area. It would go on to kill at least 380 people, and by some estimates as many as 2,000. That heat wave that first descended on the 2nd of the month in the area from Pennsylvania northeast to Maine was most affected by the stifling heat, and New York City was particularly hard hit. In fact, the New York City Health Department put out one of its very first heat advisories during July of that year, 1911. And that heat wave that struck the Northeast killed hundreds. On the 5th of July 1914 in Berlin, Kaiser Wilhelm II of Germany pledges his country's unconditional support for whatever action Austria-Hungary chooses to take in its conflict with Serbia, a long-running rivalry thrown into crisis by the assassination of the previous Archduke Franz Ferdinand of Austria and his wife by a Serbian nationalist during an official visit to Sarajevo in Bosnia. Germany gives Austria and Hungary a blank check assurance on today's date in 1914. And after Judge Hugo Friend denies a motion to quash the indictments against the Major League Baseball players accused of throwing the 1919 World Series, a trial begins with jury selection. The Chicago White Sox players, including stars Shoeless Joe Jackson, Buck Weaver, and Eddie Chicote, subsequently become known as the Black Sox after the scandal was revealed. The White Sox, who were heavily favored at the start of the World Series, had been seriously underpaid and mistreated by their owner Charles Comiskey, and the conspiracy to fix the games was most likely initiated by first baseman Chick Gindel and small-time gambler Joseph Sullivan. It was the trial that started for the Chicago White Sox players accused of throwing 1919 World Series on today's date in 1921. On the 5th of July 1946, French designer Louis Reard unveils a daring two-piece swimsuit at the Piscine Molitor, a popular swimming pool in Paris. Parisian showgirl Micheline Bernardini modeled the new fashion, which he dubbed the bikini, inspired by news-making U.S. atomic tests that took place off the Bikini Atoll in the Pacific Ocean earlier that week. The bikini was introduced on today's date in 1946. And near Sojong in South Korea, Private Kenneth Shadrick, a 19-year-old infantryman from Skinfolk, West Virginia, becomes the first American reported killed in the Korean War. A member of a bazooka squad, he had just fired the weapon at a Soviet-made tank. When he looked up to check his aim, he was cut down by enemy machine gun fire. And that was the first U.S. fatality in the Korean War that happened on today's date, the 5th of July, in the year 1950. On the 5th of July 1954, it was record producer Sam Phillip who records an unrehearsed performance of the song that is called That's All Right.
Well, that's all right, Mama.
By an unknown young truck driver named Elvis Presley.
Right, Mama, just any way you do that.
It's a moment some regard as the true beginning of the rock and roll revolution.
That's all.
History rightly credits him, the owner and operator of Sun Records in Memphis, Tennessee, with the discovery of Elvis Presley, though it fails to account for the roles of 4 others in making that discovery possible. And they include the business partner who first spotted something special in Elvis, the 2 session men who vouch for his musical talent, and Arthur Big Boy Crudup, the blues figure who wrote that song he was playing when Sam Phillips realized what he had on his hands. The sequence of events that led to this moment began when the young truck driver walked into the offices of Sun Records in the Memphis recording service on a Saturday night in the summer of 1953 and paid $3.98 plus tax to make an acetate record as a birthday present to his mother.
Leaving time to show. Well, then you won't be bothered with me hanging around your door, but that's all right.
That's all right, Mama.
That's all right, Mama, anyway do.
Elvis Presley recorded this song on the 5th of July, 1954, and became an instant regional hit and set him on his path towards stardom. On the the 5th of July 1975, Arthur Ashe defeats the heavily favored Jimmy Connors to become the first black man ever to win the Wimbledon, the most coveted championship in tennis. He began playing tennis as a boy in his hometown of Richmond, Virginia, and after winning a tennis scholarship to UCLA, he was taken under the wing of tennis star Pancho Gonzalez, who recognized the young player's potential. And he became the first black man to win the U.S. Open in 1968. 2 years later, he captured the Australian Open for his second Grand Slam title. And over the next 7 years, Arthur Ashe won his share of tournaments, but no more majors. And frustrated, he set his sights on victory at Wimbledon, one of the most celebrated championships in tennis. Becomes the first black man to win the Wimbledon on the 5th of July in 1975. On the 5th of July 1978, a regional transportation district bus stops at the intersection of Colfax Avenue and Broadway in Denver, Colorado. As passengers board, a group of people in wheelchairs position themselves in front of the bus, preventing it from leaving the stop. When a second bus arrives behind it, more people in wheelchairs position themselves behind that bus and refuse to leave, trapping the buses between them. For the next 24 hours, 19 disabled activists known as the Gang of 19 keep the buses where they are, making a powerful statement about the accessibility of transportation in the city and all over America. The Gang of 19 activists occupied Denver's intersection to protest this inaccessibility on the city's bus system on today's date in the year 1978. And it was on the 5th of July 1994 that Princeton graduate and entrepreneur Jeff Bezos founds Cadabra, a twist on the magic word abracadabra, which is initially just an online bookstore run out of his garage in Bellevue, Washington. Later, he changes the name to Amazon, and his site grows to become a global retail behemoth, an online everything store earning hundreds of millions in annual sales. So it was Amazon founded by Jeff Bezos on today's date, the 5th of July, 1994. Amazon went live on the World Wide Web in 1995, which was still in its early stages. 2 years later, Amazon went public with an IPO. In 1999, Amazon moved beyond just selling books and began offering music and videos. And then in the year 2000, Amazon opened the website to third-party sellers. In 2006, Amazon Web Services, which, as of this year, provides a majority of Amazon's operating profits, was launched to provide cloud computing services. And other Amazon milestones include the 2005 introduction of Amazon Prime, a subscription service that includes free fast shipping. In 2007, Amazon released the first Kindle e-reader, continued a major expansion, and acquired other companies, including grocery chain Whole Foods, which it purchased for $13.7 billion in 2017. In 2021, it was Jeff Bezos who stepped down from his CEO position to become executive chairman of Amazon. And in a 2013 interview, Bezos said this about Amazon's success: "We've had 3 big ideas at Amazon that we've stuck with for 18 years, and they're the reason we are successful. Put the customer first, invent, and be patient." Amazon, founded by Jeff Bezos on the 5th of July in 1994. 2 years later, in 1996, on the 5th of July, Dolly the sheep, the first mammal to have been successfully cloned from an adult cell, is born at the Roslin Institute in Scotland. Originally codenamed 6LL3, the cloned lamb was named after singer and actress Dolly Parton. The name was reportedly suggested by one of the stockmen who assisted with her birth after he learned that the animal was cloned from a mammary cell. The cells had been taken from the udder of a 6-year-old ewe and cultured in a lab using microscopic needles, in a method first used in human fertility treatments in the 1970s. After producing a number of normal eggs, scientists implanted them into surrogate ewes. 148 days later, one of them gave birth to Dolly. On today's date, in 1996, Dolly the sheep becomes the first successfully cloned mammal. And in 2003, on the 5th of July, the World Health Organization announces that all person-to-person transmission of SARS has ceased. The severe acute respiratory syndrome, SARS. In the previous 8 months, the disease had killed about 775 people in 29 countries and exposed the dangers of globalization in the context of public health. In spite of the World Health Organization's announcement, a new case was diagnosed in China the following year, and 4 more diagnoses followed that April. The first cases of SARS, then believed to be pneumonia, likely appeared in China's Guangdong province in 2002. And China reported 305 cases of atypical pneumonia, which was later found to be SARS. It was the World Health Organization declaring SARS contained worldwide on today's date in the year 2003. Those, ladies and gentlemen, were some stories from the annals of history that happened on today's date, the 5th of July. I have huge thanks going out to the supporters of community radio networks. Big thanks to Discount Power, to Houston EB5, the Ahluwalia Law Offices, the Wyndham Hotel in Irving, Digital X-Force in South Lake, Kinzer Law, My Kolachi, Ruchi Palace by My Kolachi, Shri Vimal, Vimal's Venue, as well as Eggholic, and big thanks to Mystic Mandala and Flash Brush Productions for their support of community radio networks. You all are noticing a change in the weather, and we do have lower temperatures finally in the 90s today, tomorrow, and a few more days, and we will have rain off and on, hopefully, and that, of course, being triggered by Beryl. The 2024 Texas Super Kings are opening their season today against the LA Knight Riders at the Grand Prairie Stadium, and you can get your tickets and go continue the Raring to Roar cricket tournament that is going to be played in Dallas, as well as some matches in Morrisville. Tomorrow at 5 o'clock, the Sri Raghunath Temple on Independence Parkway in Plano are having their Netra Utsav, the Naba Jabana Darshan of the Lord. And on Sunday at 5 o'clock will be the Sri Jagannath Rath Yatra, the Rath Puja, the Pahandi of the deities to the chariot, the Pahandi of Lord Jagannath's Parivar, the Rath Parikrama, and then the Aarti and Mahaprasad. All that will be happening at the Sri Raghunath Temple this weekend, Saturday, tomorrow, and Sunday. And that is, of course, in Plano. Ellen DeGeneres will be in Dallas on the 10th of this month. And then on the 12th and 13th, we have a 2-day workshop that is happening at the Radha Krishna Temple. This is the J.K. Yog Leadership Workshop for Youth. For 2 days, inviting all high schoolers and college students to attend this special program designed to empower young people to take on leadership roles in their schools, communities, and workplaces. 2-day workshop including inspiring lectures on business from industry leaders and successful entrepreneurs. The participants will get to learn from these masters and benefit from their decades of experience. The faculty includes Satish Gupta, the president and CEO of SB International, serving as trustee of the Southwest Medical Foundation in Dallas, Dayakar Puskur, GP at Naya Venture and founder and MD of Dallas Venture Capital and serial entrepreneur and investor, Dr. Gopal Gupta, the professor and head of the Department of Computer Science at UTD, and Professor Dinesh Bhatia, the professor at the School of Engineering and Computer Science at UTD. Dr. Debjani Biswas, best-selling author and CEO of Co-Achieve, TEDx speaker, Gaurav Shekhar, program director and graduate business analytics program and assistant professor of instruction in information systems, and Siddharth Bhatt, who is the co-founder and CEO of Zenerva Technologies. Swami Mukundananda, of course, the founder of JK Yoga, IIT and IIM alumnus, best-selling author and a global spiritual leader, Vedic scholar, and Bhakti saint. And the theme of this 2-day workshop is Empowering Others, the Heart of Servant Leadership. Students will have the opportunity to develop various leadership competencies through group activities that cover topics such as communication, goal setting, creating a business plan, bringing strategic change, mentoring teams, problem solving, and plenty more. 12th and 13th, 8:30 to 5:30, both days at the Radha Krishna Temple, this leadership workshop for youth. South Asian Business Alliance, SABA, Collaborate, Inspire and Thrive, having their monthly meeting on Saturday the 13th. That's not tomorrow, but the following Saturday. And it will be at the First United Bank in McKinney at the Craig Ranch on Custer Road in McKinney. SouthAsianBusinessAlliance.com for more information. And this meeting will delve into the dynamic world of information technology and artificial intelligence. A fantastic opportunity to connect, learn, and grow with like-minded professionals in the South Asian business community. We do have the Cricket Academy grand launch happening on the 14th of this month by Rohit Sharma. Fancy schmancy meet and greet along with this opening. It is going to be on the Sunday, the 14th of July. And for those of you who would like to attend this or would be love to be a part of it, please call Shalu. Her number is 201-245-6299. Crick Kingdom, in partnership with DFW Indoor Sports, are opening the Cricket Academy by Rohit Sharma, and the hitman himself is coming back to Texas on the 14th of this month. Carom Grand Masters Tournament happening on the 19th, 20th, and 21st of this month. And CNY Desi, the entertainment factory, is bringing Atif Aslam to Texas, and the only concert in Texas is going to be in Austin on the 21st of July at 7 o'clock in the evening. We do have the Sri Shirdi Sai Baba Temple of DFW having their Guru Purnima celebration starting on Saturday the 20th, but the main day is Sunday the 21st, starting at 7 o'clock in the morning with the Arati that continues. The program continues until 9:30 at night with the Shej Arati. All this, ladies and gentlemen, is happening at the Sri Shirdi Sai Baba Temple of DFW, which is on Plano Parkway. And you can visit their website, of course, shirdisaidallas.org. I'll also give you a telephone number to call. It is 469-467-3388. Wish Win have announced their 2024 Spellathon, and the preliminaries for the junior Spellathon, which is grades kindergarten to 4, is happening on the 26th and 27th, and the senior Spellathon, grades 5 to 8, happening on the 28th and 29th of this month. Please do go on to their website and get more details and see how you can participate. Wishwin.org. Shahnaz Gill is coming to the Grandian event venue, and that is happening on the 27th of this month at 8 o'clock. We also have Al Noor International presenting their 5th Cruise Mushaira 2024 with the shining stars of Urdu literature and a beautiful romantic evening and moonlight of Dallas, a global Mushaira on the waves of Frisco Lake, and that is at Hidden Cove Park and Marina on Hackberry Creek Park in Frisco. We also have a job fair that is being brought to you on the 8th of August. It's hosted by Beth Van Dyne, our U.S. Congresswoman, in partnership with the U.S.-India Chamber of Commerce, and it's happening at the Texas Rangers Stadium on the 8th of August. Also, Madhuri Dixit is going to be in town on the 9th of August, and you can check out 360shows.com for more information. A program called Yadein, reminiscing the songs of Kishore Kumar, Lata Mangeshkar, and Muhammad Rafi on Saturday, the 10th of August at the Grand Center in Plano. Pakistan Society of North Texas is presenting Qaid Mela, and that is a celebration of Pakistan's Independence Day happening on the 18th of August with a live performance by Farhan Sayyed and Sabah Qamar. It's happening at the Frisco Flyers Event Center at noon on Sunday, the 18th of August. U.S.-India Chamber of Commerce would like for all of you to mark the 22nd of August for the Wellness and Workplace Conference, and you can always get more information on the Chamber's website, which is usicoc.org. India Association of North Texas invites everyone for the 47th Anand Bazaar celebrating 77 years of India's independence on Saturday, the 31st of August at the Frisco Rough Riders Stadium. And that is the big Anand Bazaar. It is really the biggest event of the community, and it is free for all of you. Frisco Rough Riders on Saturday, the 31st of August. More details on the India Association's website, iant.org. Join the Brahma Kumaris of Dallas in welcoming Sister Shivani, a globally renowned spiritual teacher and motivational speaker. She guides us with ancient wisdom to bring hope and clarity in times of confusion and chaos. On Sunday, the 8th of September, from 2 to 4 at the Credit Union of Texas Event Center in Allen. We also have Season 2 of Mughal-e-Azam coming to Dallas on the 13th, 14th, and 15th of September at the Dallas Music Hall. And Flash Brush Productions brings you a bridal expo, a wedding expo 2024 on the 14th of September from 10 to 7 at the Frisco Hall. Food tasting, cake tasting, instant photos, live entertainment by select DJs, dhol, bridal fashion show, jewelry, henna, raffles, and plenty happening at this bridal expo on the 14th of September. For vendor booths and sponsorships, please call Priya. Her number is 972-963-0954. 972-963-0954. North Texas Giving Day, please mark the 19th of September. And that's the day with whatever you give to your favorite charity is also matched. And the Dallas Festival of Lights, the Grand Diwali Mela, happening on the 13th of October at the South Fork Ranch. Please do mark that on your calendars. And this is brought to you by Mystic Mandala. Thank you very much for listening to all these events. That's your social calendar as it stands today on this Friday, the 5th of July. Enjoy the change in the weather, and that's all we have for this week. It is Community Radio Network signing off. And for those of you who'd like to reach me directly, my number is 214-675-1754.